My name was this, my name was that. Now that my name been nixed, my aim is wisdom, no more parlor tricks. Too hard to track, nonetheless I exist. Outside the system, I'm too blessed to stress. Too strong to wrong, I am too cool to fool. Too calm to con, I am too fresh to fetch. Too heal to heal, I am too free to flee. Too real to nail, not at the time and place. To corrupt time and space has become commonplace. I'm on the case, this is all just a game. There ain't no need for shame, there ain't no need for change.
You would think that I would automatically bash Andy's team. Since Andy's been talking so much shit after he won his chip, it is my duty to come in here and psychologically break his team down just on the principle of lowering his morale, just to bring him down. Luckily, I don't have to do that much work, because if any of you know anything about fantasy, you know that Andy fucked up. And Andy seriously did fuck up. This isn't tongue-in-cheek. This isn't joking. I'm not smiling. I'm not trolling. I'm not trying to be cute. Andy's draft was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And what's funniest to me is I told Andy just right before the draft, I said, that 10th and 11th pick is different. You haven't experienced that yet if you're not a champion. If it's your defending year, this is your very first time consecutively picking potentially 2 top 10 players. That's huge. That's immense. What does Andy have to say about my critique in the chat of him just earlier today when I said that he had a shitty 10th and 11th pick? Does anyone remember? That's right. Andy's response was it was a auto pick. We'll get to that auto pick stuff later, but this is your draft recap / week 1 preview. We're going to get into a few different things. And of course, first of all, I'm going to break Andy down because it is necessary. So what I want you guys to think about right now is I want you to picture Andy's top 2 picks and Hensel's top 2 picks. Think of a NBA Jam scenario, if you will, of that horrible game, that horrible football game that I don't know. Me and Eric used to play. I don't remember who the fuck owned the game. I don't know if Pedro owned the game. Somebody brought it over to the house at one point. What was that game where you were like playing on Mars and then you sort of it was just the most ridiculous game ever. I forgot the name of the game, but just think of just just an NBA Jam scenario and think of Hensel's top 2 picks and Andy's top 2 picks. And of course, Andy selected Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs. Hensel selected Chris Carson and Aaron Jones. Miles Sanders had 179 rushing attempts in 2019, 818 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he averaged 4.6 yards a carry. Josh Jacobs had 242 attempts, 1,150 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 4.8 yards per rush. Chris Carson had 278 carries, 1,230 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 4.4 rushes an attempt. Aaron Jones had 236 attempts, 1,084 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns. I didn't know that before I hated on Aaron Jones the other day. And 4.6 yards a carry. So I want you to look at those basic things. What stands out to you the most is, of course, Chris Carson having the most yards with 1,230 and Aaron Jones having the most touchdowns with 16. Now, here's what I want you to consider in this NBA Jam scenario. Hensel had the second pick. Hensel fucked up completely, but this is what Hensel does. You see, it's not news, Andy, when a team that normally fails fucks up again. That's not news. That's just business as usual. You know what news was? You winning last year, motherfucker. That was news. You know what wouldn't be news? If Bundy Team Bundy won last year. You would just all collectively sigh and say, moving on. But you're not an educated owner, Andy. You just don't pay attention to your team enough. I remember 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember. I think it was my second chip, which it's escaping me what year it was. And I remember we were in a bar and it was the end of the season. And Andy was like, the fantasy season's over? And he was like, who won? And I said, I did. Andy goes, again? Again? You remember that, Andy. You know, unless you conveniently want to forget. But you're not hands-on. And it seems like you're not hands-on. Even as a champion, you're not hands-on. Hensel, you know, he told some story about, you know, the draft and what he thought. I'm assuming him and Joe did it together, and, you know, he thought that Joe would pick this, and maybe he stepped out to take a piss or jerk off or whatever, and he made the wrong selection. Now, what I'll argue is that Chris Carson, in comparison to Andy's team, now, of course, if you're comparing him to me, I picked up Christian McCaffrey because Hensel fucked up. You can't compare my 2 picks to Hensel's 2 picks. There's just no, and to Andy's, forget about it. If this is an NBA Jam scenario and we're putting up CMC versus, I can't even, the monster from the Ravens, all right? That monster of a quarterback that they have, all right? Jackson. When you compare those two to either of these 2 teams, there's no comparison, right? But I'm not a part of this equation. Chris Carson, in comparison to Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, stats aside, how do you feel about those players? If I told you you could start all 3 of those players, you know, what would you say? You would mull it over. These players are in the same league with each other. You see, the fact that Hensel dug out of the basket and got Chris Carson and fucked up means that he is a part of the same league. He got it from the same basket that Andy got his first picks from. And Andy didn't fuck up. Andy auto-picked. Right? We said we would get back to that auto-pick. You auto-picked, Andy. Why do you think that that's a good retort to someone critiquing your picks? It would seem to me that if you picked these 2 players 10th and 11th, if you manually picked them yourself, I think you should be more proud of the fact that you picked them yourself and you had autonomy over who's selected than auto picking. Auto picking that doesn't make you look good, Andy. What it says to me is you didn't understand the gravity of the 10th and 11th pick. That's very unique, and I can't stress this enough. Do you remember when we went back in three fields, Andy? Do you remember? Right, in 3 fields, we used to play baseball. You know, occasionally we would play a football with a 1-5-6. If we weren't playing by blocks and we got to select teams, how big would it have been to be able to select me and someone of my ilk after me? Let's say this was basketball, right? Pedro was pretty good in basketball when we were growing up. You wanted Pedro on your team, right? Right? And then to be able to select somebody who's just as effective after that, that's huge. One after another. Your opponent doesn't get to choose. You get 2 in a row. You have 2 picks in a row. And what did you do? You selected 2 mediocre running backs who were in the same league as Hensel's mistake. In the same league as Hensel's mistake. So what does that say about your team and about your selection? I told you that 10th and 11th pick is different. It hits different, Andy. You know what you didn't do? You didn't do what most people do in that position, which in this case is a fail. You didn't pick a wide receiver. You couldn't pick anybody. You couldn't pick Hopkins. You couldn't pick. All right, let's show you just how bad of a catastrophe this was, because like I said in the opening, this is not an attempt to psychologically break Andy's team down. I don't have to do that. The proof is right in front of you when it comes to Andy's team. Andy's team can show you after this draft that, like Paul said, Andy's bidding already for that top 3 pick. Name anyone on Andy's team that could potentially be a number 1 player. I'll wait. Maybe Russell Wilson. Maybe Russell Wilson. It'll be just like Chris Godwin last year when he was a top-ranked wide receiver, and you were just like, I guess he was. Garbage time, right? He gets that in garbage time. He can eat, let's see what happens with him and Brady. I'll get to Chris Godwin later with Pedro, but garbage points, Yeah, Russell Wilson could be number one, but outside of that, it's not happening. You know who has a potential number one player? Joe, Eric, Hensel. Well, wait a minute. I have to check with Hensel. No. Hensel just completely jerked off his chances of having a real effective high-scoring team, which is what you want to establish. At the very least, have a high-scoring team. Hensel fucked himself out of that when he picked Chris Carson. But every other team has a player who could potentially be a number one at their particular position. Here's where you fucked up specifically, my friend. So with the 10th pick, you got Miles Sanders, right? You followed that up with Josh Jacobs. Except before that, Ed selected, for the 8th pick, he selected Michael Thomas. Right? So the number one wide receiver was off the board. After Josh Jacobs, J-Ray picks Devontae Adams, and Ed picks up DeAndre Hopkins after that. Now, this is a running back heavy league. Most fantasy leagues are. That's what you really need to win championships. And Andy would know because with his easy selections that he had last year when he had the second pick in 2019 and he picked Christian McCaffrey and also got Delvin Cook, two potential players that could be a number one. So just think about that. Andy's sort of like KD in that sense, where for him to win a championship, it has to be an absolute perfect storm. He's just got to be a fucking world beater or else it's not happening, right? So Andy fails to pick a number one anything. He fails to pick a number one wide receiver. He fails to pick he didn't have a chance to get a number one running back. But Andy could have taken Lamar Jackson. That would have been a better pick. One of them. You have to get creative. The fact that you auto picked, ESPN picked it. They're gonna go for the highest ranking. You failed yourself when why did you auto pick? Why did you auto pick? You mean to tell me you didn't care enough about your team to sit down and pick your players manually? Are you okay with that? Is that what you meant by that response? Did you say, no, it's okay, I auto picked? So are you implying that you would have picked other players? And if you would have picked other players, doesn't that, by definition, mean that you failed? This is bad, Andy. This is really bad. I can't remember the last time a team failed this much. The fact that you didn't pick a number one wide receiver is bad, even for trading purposes. I mean, you pick up Devontae Adams and you've got Eric's attention because, Eric ended up picking up Aaron Rodgers. Just something. There's nothing valuable on your team. Absolutely nothing valuable on your team. I'm not trying to be clever here. I'm not trying to be cute here. I'm seriously, this is a state of emergency for the Night Fox. And by the way, fuck your name, Night Fox. And then when he explains it, he posts up that stupid clip from Ocean's 11. Okay, so now you're some billionaire thief, some faggoty Italian guy. What are you going to do? Explain to us by the end of the season how you failed? Well, I picked Miles Sanders and then Josh Jacobs. You're going to explain that to George Clooney? See how stupid he's going to fucking look at you when you tell him how stupid you were for not picking a number one wide receiver? Ed's team got very strong. You made Ed's team very strong because you just ignored wide receivers. Like J. Ray in the first round picked up Clyde Edwards, right? The rookie running back who will be out there just in a few hours against the Texans. J. Ray picked him up first, and then he came back with Devontae Adams, right? So J. Ray gets a number one something because Devontae Adams is definitely capable of being the number one wide receiver in the league. And definitely the number one wide receiver on his team. It's yet to be determined if Miles Sanders, who had, didn't have the greatest rookie season, is going to be the number one anything on his team. That, not even position, just let alone the fucking team, Andy. Who's the backup? Did you handcuff any of these guys? What did you do? What are you doing? Let's have a real talk here, Night Fox. Come on. Just send the belt to Orlando and just spare us. If this season isn't played in its entirety, which that's a possibility that all of us could, we have to consider that's a possibility that this entire season may not be played out. After the season, we have no champion. You don't get to hold on to that belt. You won the chip last year. This season doesn't count. We just, onward to the next year. But no, Andy, no. So, I do want to get to, people that I think did some interesting things. I think J-Ray had a very interesting draft. As I said, he picked up Clyde Edwards with his number 1 pick. He took a risk on him. Also decided to go. He's deciding to go with Daniel Jones as his number 1 quarterback. But my guess there is that J-Ray's gonna do some, interchangeable thing as the weeks go along. I would assume, maybe pick up Ryan Tannehill or something like that and just play around with it. But I thought that was an interesting move. Let's see where that goes. I don't even know any receivers that play for the Giants. And of course, Leonard Fournette was one of Jay's selections, the 6th round selection to be exact. Be interesting to see what happens there. Apparently, it's been rumored, some fantasy podcasts that I've been listening to, it's been rumored that Tom Brady isn't going to throw as much. Maybe it's an age thing or whatever. Whatever you want to think there. And that would just even be funnier. The fact that Andy also picked up Mike Evans, and if somehow the Tampa Bay offense doesn't click the way it should be, and Andy's supposed number 1 wide receiver doesn't even get any fucking play. It's just goddamn it, Andy. That was just a fail on all accounts. It was just bad. It was just real bad. I felt that let's see who else. As I said, Ed had a very good 2 first rounds at least. He ended up getting Cam Akers, who I don't know much about, but I'm assuming he's going to get the start over no, I was going to say Eckler. I don't think Eckler is I think he plays for the Chargers, but yeah, he's got Cam Akers, Melvin Gordon, who I was hesitant to pick up because Melvin Gordon is just an injury waiting to happen, but 2 okay running backs. Ed, of course, does the moronic thing of putting a quarterback on his bench. Of course, he picks up Cam Newton, who will eventually score 30 points, which will pique Ed's interest enough to the point where he will consider sitting down Watson. That week, of course, Watson will score 40 points and Cam Newton will score 20, and Ed will lose by 19 points. So, quarterback controversy, if you want to give it to yourself, like I said, just take it, go for it. Just go nuts. No one's going to want to trade for Cam Newton, that's for sure. If you ever think of the biggest waste of time that you could think is to have a quarterback on your bench and to think that you're going to use him as trade bait. By all means, keep him there because you think Watson is going to get hurt and you want to throw him in there, or you want a real solid quarterback for your bye week. But don't think that anyone is going to give you any fucking play for a quarterback in this league. It's a 10-team league. If it was a 12-team league, maybe, obviously if it's a 2-quarterback league, then, quarterbacks are the bee's knees. So, yeah. Eric had a decent draft as well. Picking up, and I want to make this point too, and Orlando can just, turn away at this and kind of dismiss it. I'm imagining he does have, he should be able to recognize that this does have some value, but picking up those 2 kickers in particular, the Kansas City kicker and the Baltimore Ravens kicker, is big. Obviously, these are 2 big offenses. And, my monkey brain ape-like logic is if I've got Lamar Jackson and we're just pushing those cones forward, guess what? I'm in the 30-yard line. I'm either going to get 3 points from a kicker or I'm getting, I'm gonna get 8 points altogether, but with the touchdown, maybe who knows how many yards. But there's gonna be scoring, and I control the scoring for that team moving forward. No one gets to mooch off of me in a big game, week 13, where I need Lamar Jackson to score, and then fucking Tucker comes in and gets points for some. No, it's all mine. I own everything. I think the word that we should start using is just ownership. You just want complete ownership of dynamic offenses, and Eric doesn't have ownership of the Kansas City defense, but he does own part of Orlando's offense. He owns a part of it, and Orlando should care about that, because Orlando is a proud owner of one of the two Hydras that we have this season here. Orlando, of course, picking up Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. And the other Hydra, which, remains to be seen what kind of a Hydra it's going to be, Pedro with Chris Godwin and Tom Brady. I only call it a Hydra because, Tom Brady's Tom Brady, no matter how old he is. And Chris Godwin did what he did last year. That could be a monster move for Pedro. Let's see what happens. I don't love Eric's bench. Jamison Crowder. I didn't want David Montgomery. I just looked at him and I want nothing to do with Mitch Trubisky. I'm not buying whatever he's selling. Kareem Hunt. That remains to be seen what's going to happen there in Cleveland, and of course the Bears defense is always valuable. Derrick Henry, his again potential number one, Andy. Potential number one. Your names, I'll give J-Ray credit, and I'll say that your name, in comparison to the other names that just surfaced the last 2 days, is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, look, it's hate on Andy. Charles Lee J. Ray, of course. Charles Lee Ray was what was that? The name of the serial killer that inhabited Chucky's body or whatever. That was the soul inside of the doll. I like that. It's cute. Now it's become cute ever since these other names have surfaced. Of course, the before mentioned Night Fox sounds like a. I don't know. The name's just cringe to me. I'll tell you a story. One of the first things that I remember writing, and this is a very embarrassing story, but Andy's name is embarrassing, and so is his draft. One of the first things I ever wrote was in grade school. We had like some creative writing project or something, and then within the next 2 periods, we had to write like a short story about something. For some reason, I wrote some stupid story about a guy who saves the world and he works the night shift. And the last sentence in the short story was somebody asking him like, "What's your name?" And I remember I wrote, "My name is Night Shift," or something like that. Like it was like some, it was like Christopher Nolan Batman Register before Christopher Nolan made a Batman movie. Like, I'm Night Shift. That's really what I had envisioned in my head when I wrote that last line or whatever. But it was so I called the short story Night Shift. That's what I think of when I think of this corny fucking Night Fox. What's your name? Night Fox. I'm not even attaching it to the whole to the whole Ocean's 11 thing, like some gay fucking Italian thief. No. It's just a cringe-worthy name, Night Fox. The fact that you change your name after winning the chip says a lot. I'm gonna let that simmer. The fact that you change your name after you win the chip says a lot. You're trying to rebrand. You're trying to change things, and it's only because you've already been conditioned to want to change at the beginning of every year, because you fail at the beginning of every year. You've already got a loser's mentality, my friend. You've been cloaked with it. I know. It's been stressful. You've been beating the shit out of minorities. You've been yelling at people for not wearing their masks. I get it, Andy. I get it. It's stressful, but This isn't the way to go, man. You know what you should do? You should go back to the Mother Lovers. That was the best name you ever had. Next on this list is Joelicus Maximus. Joelicus Maximus. Great name. Great little name flip. Only the spirit of Maximus Aurelius does not represent Joe's team. I guess that remains to be seen. It remains to be seen if Joe can turn this thing around. Joe is the only winless team this league has left, but he's got Drew Brees, he's got Saquon Barkley, he's got Julio Jones, he's got Tyler Lockett, he's got Travis Kelce. I mean, hey, got Mark Ingram on the bench. For whatever reason, he has several. Let's see. Okay, no. Okay, so he's got Mark Ingram. He's got Latavius Murray, who is somebody that I was kind of interested in as just somebody to just keep on the bench there. And McCole Hardman, who, you guys will see him tonight. If you guys remember McCole Hardman, he runs like he's late for work. He runs like he's Chris Gardner, and he has a very important internship at Teen Ritter. And he's got his fucking bone density scanner with him. Like, that dude plays hard, man. Sony Michel. I, of course, picked up James White because my logic is, hey, look, New England running backs fucking suck, but maybe no Brady. Let's see what happens. I'll take a chance with James White. And, of course, he's got Julian Edelman. So, if healthy, Joe's team can do something, but Joelicus Maximus, I'm a fan of that name. Next up, we have La Barba. I do not like this name. I will not be referring to you as La Barba. Instead, I will refer to you as the creator of one of the greatest ditties of all time, Richie Valens. Pedro's name is La Bamba. That's Pedro's name. All right? La Bamba. I'm not going to call you La Barba. Get the fuck out of here, nigga. La Bamba. That's your fucking name. Until you win something, then I'll call you by your actual name because I called you Nida Khalid before this. So go fuck yourself, Pedro. Next on the list, and the very last name, is the Light Skin Delegation. I took a look at Ed's logo here, and it's some Super Mario thing here. I guess this is supposed to be Steph Curry, and it's like basketball stuff. I'm not really into basketball. Ed's into basketball. Who gives a shit? Ed's not important. He's not gonna fucking win. Go fuck yourself, Ed. Even though you picked up those two fucking wide receivers off Andy's back. Okay, so that pretty much concludes all I have to say about the draft, really. I felt that I had a pretty good draft myself. I think I did myself a favor by picking up Lamar Jackson. I, of course, got very lucky for Christian McCaffrey. As I told Andy in the chat, I am not expecting Rob Gronkowski to play all games. Before picking up Rob Gronkowski, I had read that Rob Gronkowski hasn't played a full season since 2011. So I knew that beforehand. But what I'm counting on is Rob Gronkowski to be around for weeks that matter. Not necessarily playoffs, but certain weeks that are going to matter. If he's healthy, it's a good matchup. If he can get in there with a fucking red zone touchdown, I think that gives me more of an advantage than to start some tight end who nobody fucking knows that I just pick up on a whim and try to get lucky on. So I felt that my team's pretty solid, but I'm not going to sit here and suck my dick. You can see my team. You see my dick. You notice the fact that I'm projected to score more points than any of you this week, so that already lets you know where my team lies. Week 1 matchups are as follows. Team Bondi. I kind of lost my breath there. Team Bondi going up against the Night Fox, of course. This is what has to happen, my friend. To be the man, you have to beat the man. Now you've won your championship, all right? Now you step up to Shang Tsung. Let's see what's going to happen now, right? This is fucking Mortal Kombat. Fucking hold still while I fucking kick you right in the head. So, the next matchup is Joelicus Maximus versus La Bamba. La Bamba is projected to score 93 points, while Maximus is projected to score 90. Of course, this is Brady against Breeze. Pedro has Alvin Kamara, so that's going to be interesting to see how that sort of cross, that the sort of cross offense affects the matchup, and Canyon Drake as well. The light-skinned delegation against Charles Lee J. Ray, 90 points projection for the light-skinned delegation, 78 for J. Ray. Excuse me. The White Ranger, who, of course, let me add, of course, yes, the White Ranger technically is a new name as well. Orlando, as I said, your team is it's headed for one of those Turbo Ninja seasons that no one watched. Yes, of course, you may think it looks badass, but nobody was watching because Power Rangers aren't really Power Rangers without Tommy. That's what your season's going to be. It's going to be sort of an off-brand year for you, even though you have quite a dangerous Hydra. And Todd Gurley, who you had selected in the 4th round, which I didn't think was too bad. I said I would monitor when Todd Gurley was selected, and I think Todd Gurley, 4th, 5th, I wonder if he would have dipped if had you not picked him. I remember staring at Gurley's name, and he was pretty much the only option at that point. I think it was like Gurley and David Johnson at that point, and I was like, I'd probably pick Gurley. So I think 4th round was the good way to go. I thought Todd Gurley was going to go like round 2 or not round 2, but like round 3. I think that's a stretch, but 1 round, whatever. Of course, White Ranger going up against Ewok Rape, Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes. Ewok Rape projected to get 94 points, and the White Ranger 98. Rolo Tomassi versus Fuck You to end this week's matchups. 97 points projected for Rolo Tomassi and 88 points for Team Fuck You, who of course has Matt Ryan. That was perhaps Hensel's biggest mistake was to pick Matt Ryan. Hensel has picked Matt Ryan for a few years now. I don't know if he had him last year, but I'm pretty sure he didn't. He's had him a few times, and Hensel hasn't learned his lesson on Matt Ryan yet. I think Hensel's going for the safe bet. He figures, at least, I don't know if he thinks he's not going to throw interceptions or whatever, but Hensel picked Matt Ryan when Drew Brees was still available, when Aaron Rodgers was still available. Like, that's a fail in my opinion. He has Calvin Ridley. I didn't even mention that as being a Hydra. That's an agreement. That's what it is. It's not even a monster. It's just written in paper, like my number 1 wide receiver versus my quarterback. It's just an agreement at this point. That's not a Hydra. And of course, it's fitting that he would face Paul, who, in my opinion, made another weak quarterback decision with Dak Prescott. I think it's a much better idea to probably pick up Ryan Tannehill or somebody else. He probably would have picked Cam Newton had Ed not hoarded him. So, maybe Paul can, since Paul wants to be so critical of the recap, since he wants to sit there and be a fucking pleasure bot and just, I didn't approve of what. Shut the fuck up, Paul. You shut the fuck up and you just listen. How about that? That's the relationship. I talk, you listen. Maybe Paul can confirm whether he would have picked up Cam Newton or not. Paul, let me know. Delvin Cook, Nick Chubb. See, Nick Chubb. Andy could have got. If Andy would have gotten Nick Chubb, that would have been more like Andy failed so bad for the draft. I can't get over it. But once again, fuck you against Rolo Tomassi to end the matchups for this week. So it is just about an hour or two before the kickoff of the 2020 season. Of course, I hope, just like the rest of you, that we actually have football this season. I understand that COVID is going to be a major concern, and there'll probably be, I hope there's no boycotts. Players are going to get sick. This is one of those seasons where anything can happen. Sure, you can draft Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson can, be sidelined with he's either going to fucking, get a titty attack because a black person got shoved by a cop last week and then he doesn't want to play, or so it's from here on out it's just going to be sheer chaos. So let's just hope for the best, and let's hope that we actually have a complete football season. Okay? All right. Andy, this week, you play the boss. You play the man. You play the man with 3 chips. You are the man with 1 chip. I am the man with 3 chips. Andy, just because you won the championship doesn't mean you have to take my energy, right? You don't have to be the heel. You don't have to act like the heel, Andy. You don't have to do that. But you wouldn't know that, would you? Because you've never been in a position to win. You've never been in that position, so what would you know? You just try on the first costume that you felt was appropriate. And all the while, ignoring your actual team because you auto-picked. We could do this all day, Andy. But fortunately, we're going to do this all year. Okay? So may your quarterbacks get hurt before they leave the locker room. May your wide receivers pull their hamstrings. And may your running backs get arrested for marijuana possession. Go fuck yourselves.